Today's video was made possible with the help of my patrons. Head on over to the link in the description to receive your exclusive benefits. Hi everyone, here's another Railway Series adaptation for you. I've been looking forward to this one, as today we're going to be covering my synopsis for how I would have adapted Jock the new engine. If you enjoy this video and want to see more like it, then don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and ring Toby's bell to stay notified for when I post new content. Now with all of that out of the way, let's get started. The first story, We Need Another Engine, takes place during the same year that the first Arlesdale focused book came out, that being the year 1967. Don't forget that the Railway series does exist within its own universe. As it turns out, Rex, Mike and Bert were not the only engines on the line at this point in time, as there was also a diesel named Frank. However, Frank was not included in the original book, as the thin clergyman didn't know of him. When Frank finds out that he wasn't in the book, he rebels and crashes into the back of the shed. Naturally, he gets scolded and punished for it.
You fucking prats!
But he makes up for it in the end when Rex breaks down and Frank rescues the train. At the end of the story, the small controller ponders the idea of maybe acquiring another engine so that Frank doesn't have to do all of the rescue work. This is a really funny story, as it's so meta. It's a clever way of introducing a new character who technically isn't new at all, and it provides a nice setup and even foreshadows what's to come later. The second story, Sticking Power, along with all of the rest of the book, take place during the then present day of 1990. Bert is feeling unwell and is teased for not having enough sticking power, but he perks up when he's informed that a new engine is being built. Next day, he's tasked with pulling a passenger train, only for a coupling to break, and with no other options, his driver uses super glue of all things to amend the issue. At the end of the day, Bert manages to use Rex and Mike's own joke against them. The latter half of this story is really reminiscent of James and the Bootlace. It's an unfortunate circumstance that gets remedied in a humorous fashion. This is a really funny story, but it has gotten some flack as it refers to Bert being a young engine, when he is canonically a lot older than the others.
I thought you older engines had sticking power.
But aside from that, it's a worthy inclusion to the book. The third story shares its name with the new engine, who is yet to be named at this point. When he appears, the others are all in awe of his unique paint job, though they are told that it will soon be replaced, as it is an undercoat. Duck and Douglas arrive to witness the newcomer begin his trials, and Douglas remarks at how the new engine's colour reminds him of engines he saw in the Highlands, with identical paint, which were commonly known as Jocks. The new engine takes a liking to it, and requests to keep it along with his paint, to which the small controller agrees. I love the real life inspiration to this story, as the Jocks were real engines, and so it's nice to have that inclusion. It's also a novel way to introduce a new character. And finally, we have teamwork. It turns out that Jock has become very cocky due to his strength, which only boosts his ego when he manages to pull a lorry trailer into the yard. Next day, he is tasked with double-heading a train with Mike, something that the red engine is not pleased about, especially given Jock's current attitude. So Mike, being Mike, devises a scheme with his driver that forces Jock to do all of the work and shakes his confidence a little. However, the plan works a little too well, as Mike breaks down for real on the return journey, and Jock now has to do all of the work yet again. When they get home, they both apologise to each other, and Jock is officially accepted as part of the fleet. This is another one of those stories that depicts both of its protagonists in the wrong, and as a result, they each get their just dues. It's a formula that almost always works really well. A solid way to close the book. Jock the New Engine is definitely one of Christopher Awdry's better books, as it manages to give all of its pre-existing characters some time in the spotlight, without overshadowing the newcomer, and vice versa. Now since the Arlesdale engines are only known to exist in the CGI series, you might be expecting me to say that I would use the CGI series as the format for my adaptation. Well, you'd be wrong. You see, while Jock and Frank don't exist in it, this book has been adapted in the CGI series style by Epic Lafitu. So sorry if I pronounced that wrong. This fan-made adaptation feels really authentic and is exactly how I would have imagined the stories to look and feel if they were adapted into the actual show. This adaptation will be linked in the description for you guys to check out. So instead of just copying this version of the adaptation, I'm instead going to use the model series as an attempt to be creative and work within its limitations, as that just feels more fun. Believe it or not, the model series did actually adapt a story from the original Arlesdale book, back in season 6, as the episode Faulty Whistles is based on Mike's whistle. A couple of elements are changed, and Duncan is used in place of Mike, but this works surprisingly well, so that's what I'm gonna do. But who am I going to use in place of Jock? Well, Mighty Mac of course. Mighty Mac debuted in season 9, and is my personal favourite hit era newbie. A double-ended engine with two faces is such a unique concept, and one that should have been explored more outside of their introductory episode. So that's what I'm going to do here. Now as for the story We Need Another Engine, some of you might be expecting me to use Rusty in place of Frank, which makes some sense, using a diesel to fill in for a diesel and whatnot. However, Rusty rebelling and being so careless is just completely out of character, as in his true form, he is very responsible and level-headed. Instead, I think the most optimal candidate would be Sir Handel. Now for this, we would have to place the episode in season 4, since that's the only season that Sir Handel appears in before Mighty Mac's introduction. Much like how Faulty Whistles reworked a few story details to fit its new narrative, so too will my version. Instead, this episode will serve as a sequel to Steamroller. Sir Handel gets tired of being teased for his incident with George, and as a result, refuses to work, ramming into the back of the shed that he so notably has a distaste for.
What a small shed! This won't do at all! We're much too smart for this old shack!
Instead of Rex breaking down, we can use Peter Sam, as both are the residential chipper members of their respective fleets. And since he's the only narrow gauge character that Sir Handel is close to at this point in time, besides Duke, I think it would make more sense for Sir Handel to rescue him rather than anyone else. We could probably throw in a line at the beginning telling the audience that Peter Sam didn't tease Sir Handel. After all, he was the only one to refrain from making fun of his quote, steamroller wheels. If we want to change things up even further, instead of the Fat Controller scolding Sir Handel, we could use Duke. I think this would be nice, as it would add something for this underused legend. The story might need a name change for its adaptation, so let me know if you guys have any suggestions for what to rename it to. As for sticking power, I say that we fill in Bert's position with Peter Sam. The protagonist of this story is meant to be younger, and since I just used one of them, let's now use the other young character. While I could use Skarloey and Rhaenys as the old characters that joke about how Peter Sam doesn't have enough sticking power, I don't personally see them teasing another engine for feeling unwell. Instead, we could use Sir Handel, or even Duncan, or better yet, just use Henry. I mean, think about it. They've already got their previously established rivalry from the Refreshment Lady story, and Peter Sam getting the last laugh at the end would allow him to get even with Henry for his previous trick. After this, we use Mighty Mac's debut story as a stand-in for Jock's introduction into the book. All that's left now is teamwork. Now some of you might think that Mighty Mac wouldn't work well, since Jock had an ego courtesy of his strength, while Mighty Mac didn't. But to be honest, what is their personality besides their bickering in their debut? They don't have one. So making them confident in their strength after they've already learned to work properly together doesn't seem too far out of left field.
We can pull a heavy train, wheezed Mighty. We're very strong, whistled Mac.
As for Mike's stand-in, we'll take a page out of Season 6's book and use Duncan. We did already see his cunning and devious side in Duncan's bluff during Season 10, and so I welcome the notion to show it off again. Though I would place it in Season 11, making sure that it takes place after Madge the Snub-Nosed Lorry had her introduction. Mighty Mac uses their strength to rescue a broken down Madge with her load, and they receive justified praise for it, which goes to their smoke boxes. Their act catches the eye of a nearby reporter who writes an article about them, thus drawing in a crowd who wants to see them. A few days later, they get tasked to pull an enthusiast train with Duncan. Now we can't have Duncan face to face with one of the twins, as this would prevent his ability to properly whisper to his driver. So, I propose that Duncan gets placed at the back of the train after arriving late. From there, the story will play out more or less the same as it does in the book. And that's it! What do you guys think of my proposal for an adaptation of Jock's book within the limitations of the model series? How would you have adapted the stories? Would you have tried to work within the limitations of the model series? Or would you have gone beat for beat in the CGI series? Let me know down in the comments, as I always love hearing your creative ideas. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed. Now until next time, I've been Sinners and Ashes UK, you've been awesome, and have a great day. Bye!